second day of our journey, and we are going to the Kennedy School of Government to meet Professor Dani Rodrik. He received the John von Neumann Award of Rajk College in 2018.
I'm Dani Rodrik. I'm an economist. I teach at Harvard University. The research I do is mostly in economic growth, international trade and globalization, and political economy.
We're having a discussion with him about his research on issues regarding the global economy, economic and political integration in Europe, and his mission as a social scientist. The concept of the globalization trilemma has become fundamental to social sciences. We wanted to find out its implications for European integration.
I think globalization has been one of the forces that has created significant inequality and disintegration in domestic economies. I think it has both a kind of a material side and a sort of a non-material social kind of side. Obviously, globalization has created lots of winners, skilled professionals, big corporations and banks and high income, high wealth individuals. At the same time, I think a lot of people have not had the benefit of the global networks or the global markets, the skills needed to flourish in a world market. So I think globalization has tended to drive societies apart, dividing societies between a group of winners and a group of losers who felt not only that they were being left behind, but also that they were being disregarded. The losers tend to be relatively less skilled individuals, older, they tend to be male, less educated, living in either in small towns or urban areas or suburbs of large cities or in the countryside, as in the case of the United States. I came up with the idea of the globalization trilemma, or what I call the political trilemma of the global economy. I think was first time in 2000, and I was asked to write a paper for a collection of articles on with the new millennium, sort of a future-oriented collection of articles as to what capitalism would look like in the future. And that's when in 2000, that's when I first wrote about the trilemma, which says that of the following three things, you can have at most two. And those three things are national sovereignty, mass politics or democracy, and deep globalization. So between national sovereignty, mass politics, and hyper-globalization, you have to decide which two you want, because you cannot have all three. And I think the European Union, particularly the Eurozone, faces exactly the kind of trade-offs that the trilemma identifies, which is that, to put it in terms of the challenge that Europe faces, that if it wants to maintain a thriving democracy, the Eurozone has to decide whether it is going to either integrate politically, that is, carry politics to a transnational level, or it will have to somehow disintegrate economically. In actuality, most countries are not necessarily at one end or the other. They're somewhere in between. And I think the trade-offs that the trilemma identifies are the choices that countries face at the margin. That is to say, if you want to have a little bit more of that, you'll have to have a little bit less. The choice that many Central and East European countries made early in the transition was to throw themselves wholesale into a European economic integration process. And the hope was that the European economic integration process, being part of a single market, would be not only economically beneficial, but it would also be politically beneficial. But I think what was happening in the background was that the process of economic integration, the European version of hyperglobalization that is being part of this single market, also was driving a wedge in these societies between the winners and the losers. People, and especially male workers in countries like Poland and Hungary, who had already suffered because of the consequences of the transition and all the industrial establishments closing down, were found that in this new integrated economy that there wasn't really much room for them. I think the choice is between a truly politically integrated Europe, where national politicians and national parliaments lose their power, or one where political power remains at the national level, but if it's going to remain, a lot of economic policy will have to be renationalized as well. So I think the question is how Europe handles this decision. I think it's going to be very difficult to envisage political integration. And therefore, I think that a certain amount of renationalization of economic policy is inevitable. The question is then, in whose interest does this renationalization take place? Is this renationalization a process that's captured by nativist groups, by exclusionary groups, by a set of corrupt elites for their own purposes, or is it done in a more inclusive fashion?
Professor Rodrik joined the Initiative of Economics for Inclusive Prosperity in 2019. We were eager to discuss the concept of inclusive prosperity, as well as the role of social scientists in today's world.
The economists and other social scientists have a responsibility to generate policy ideas, good policy ideas that are accurately reflect the reality on the ground, that are not, that don't fetishize the market, that don't fetishize hyperglobalization. So this is Economics for Inclusive Prosperity, or EFIP as we call it, is a network of academic economists that we started about a year ago. The point is to make economics part of the solution rather than part of the problem, as sometimes it's taken to be, going beyond just economic growth and efficiency, but also stressing distribution, dignity, other aspects of well-being such as health and overall life satisfaction and life chances. So we have a broad understanding of where well-being comes from, and we think that economics can and should be in service of more inclusive policy ideas and reforms. And we are cognizant that we are at a time when there is a search for new solutions, because we have created societies that are suffering from a tremendous number of problems. The problems of inequality that we've already talked about, but the challenges of climate change and environmental stress. We are united in the belief that economics has a lot to say, has a lot to offer in all of these areas. Being an academic economist, being a scholar is a privilege that society is paying you to do research and to teach, to write. And I think we have to be cognizant that this is indeed a privilege, and with that privilege comes certain responsibilities. Now today, academic researchers are paid by society at large through the generosity of society, and I think in return we have this responsibility to generate solutions to pressing problems.